Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something, well, really fundamental if you're involved in any kind of training or development. How do you actually know if it's working? How do you demonstrate its value? Because we all kind of feel training is beneficial. People learn things, hopefully change behaviors. But proving it,
Yeah.
especially putting a dollar figure on it, that's where it gets tricky. Sales training, maybe you see the numbers go up, easy enough. But communication skills, leadership, those softer skills,
Right.
much harder to quantify.
Right, exactly. And that's really what we want to zero in on today. Moving past just feeling training is good to actually proving it, we want to give you some practical tools, some frameworks to measure both the easy wins, the tangible stuff, as more elusive and tangible benefits too. We'll be looking at David Kolb's learning styles, understanding how people learn is key, and then Kirkpatrick's levels of evaluation. That's a really solid framework for impact.
Okay, great. Let's unpack all of that. And starting with the learner makes sense. If you don't understand how people learn, measuring that learning is, well, guesswork. So Kolb's four-stage process.
Right. Kolb's idea is that learning is a cycle. It's fascinating because you see it everywhere, everyday life stuff too. It starts with concrete experience, basically. Something happens to you.
Yeah.
Then comes reflections and observations. You step back, look at what happened, think about it. From there, you move to abstract concepts. This is where you start forming new ideas, maybe theories, based on those reflections. And finally, active experimentation. You try out your new ideas, which naturally leads to a new concrete experience, and the cycle just keeps going.
Like learning a new app on your phone or even figuring out how to train your dog, maybe.
Exactly. It's this constant loop. And Kolb built on this, identifying 4 learning styles linked to these stages. Now, everyone has a preference, a preferred style, but Kolb argued that for learning to be really effective, you need to engage all 4 parts of the cycle in the training.
Okay, so what are these styles? And crucially, how do they connect back to measuring the training?
Good question. First up, accommodators. They lean towards concrete experience and active experimentation. These are your learn by doing folks. Risk takers, hands-on, trial and error. So if your only evaluation is, say, a written exam, you might totally miss how much an accommodator learned through actually doing the task.
Right, makes sense. Who's next?
Then you have divergers, strong on concrete experience and reflective observation. They're imaginative, see things from multiple angles, good at brainstorming. They need time to watch and think. So purely performance-based test might not capture the insights a diverger gained just by observing and reflecting.
Interesting. Okay, 2 more.
Convergers. They excel at abstract conceptualization and active experimentation. Very practical, great at applying ideas to solve problems, especially if there's one right answer. They like logic, deductive reasoning. For them, maybe a simulation where they have to apply a specific process would be a really good way to measure their learning.
And the last one.
Assimilators. Strong in abstract conceptualization and reflective observation. These are the theorists, the researchers. They love logical models, abstract ideas, less focused on the practical how-to. The big takeaway here, if your evaluation method only suits one style, like a multiple-choice test, perhaps favoring convergers, you could be misjudging what others, like divergers or accommodators, actually got out of it. So understanding these styles helps you design, well, better evaluations, more accurate ones because they cater to different ways of learning.
Okay, that provides a great foundation understanding the learner. But now, how do we measure if that learning actually translates into something meaningful? That's where Kirkpatrick comes in, right?
Precisely. Kirkpatrick's levels of evaluation. It's probably the most widely used model for a reason it's structured, it makes logical sense, and importantly, each level builds on the one before it. You generally need positive results at the lower levels to see real impact higher up.
To walk us through the levels, what's level 1?
Level 1, reactions. This is the immediate gut check. Did participants like the training? Did they find it relevant? Was the room okay? The coffee good? You measure this with feedback forms, happy sheets, maybe quick verbal comments right at the end. It's about satisfaction. Simple, but important first step.
Got it. Happy sheets. We've all filled those out. What's level 2?
Level 2, learning. Okay, so they liked it, but did they actually learn anything? Did they absorb the knowledge or skills we intended? This is where you use things like pre- and post-tests, quizzes, maybe skill demonstrations immediately after the training. The absolute key here, though, is that these assessments must align directly with your stated learning objectives. You have to measure what you set out to teach.
Right, makes sense. You can't test them on something you didn't cover. So level 3.
Level 3, behavior. This is a big jump. Okay, they liked it, they learned something,
Hmm.
but are they actually using it back on the job? Has their behavior changed? Are they applying the new skill? How consistently? Are they aware of the change? Can they even teach it to others? This one's tougher, especially for those soft skills we mentioned. How do you see better communication?
Yeah, that seems like the hard part. How do you measure that?
It takes more effort. Things like observations over time, maybe case studies where they apply the learning, or 360-degree feedback are really useful here. 360s gather input from managers, peers, maybe even direct reports, giving you a more rounded picture of actual behavior change. You need an ongoing but not intrusive system.
Okay, behavior change. That leads us to the top, level 4.
Level 4, results. This is the bottom line. What tangible impact did the training have on the business or the individual's environment? We're talking about metrics the organization probably already tracks. Things like sales figures, customer complaint rates, production output, error reduction, maybe even employee retention. This is usually what senior leaders want to see. The numbers, the proof, the ROI essentially.
But you mentioned a caution here.
Yes, a big one. Correlation isn't causation. Did sales go up only because of the training, or did the economy boom, or did a competitor stumble? The challenge at level 4 isn't just finding a positive result. It's being reasonably sure you can attribute that result, or at least a portion of it, directly to the training intervention. Isolating the impact is key.
That's a really critical point. So given all these levels and complexities, just hoping for the best isn't enough. You need a plan, right? An evaluation plan.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be an afterthought you tack on at the end. Your evaluation strategy needs to be developed right alongside the training plan itself, linked to the needs analysis and the learning objectives from the very start.
Okay, so what goes into a solid evaluation plan?
4 main things, really. First, what will we evaluate? And this flows directly from your learning objectives. What specific knowledge, skills, or behaviors are you targeting? Be clear, be measurable.
Second.
When will the evaluation be completed? Are you measuring before training starts? During? Immediately after? Weeks or months later? Some things you might measure at multiple points to track progress.
Makes sense.
Third,
How will we evaluate it? This is choosing your tools. Tests, observations, simulations, 360s, interviews, metric analysis. The how depends on the what's and when.
and the last piece.
Who will perform the evaluation? Will the trainees self-assess? Will their manager evaluate? Peers? The trainer? Sometimes using multiple evaluators gives you a richer picture.
Okay, that's a clear framework. Let's maybe touch on some specific tools for different timings.
Mhm.
What about before training? How do you assess then? Right, getting that baseline. You could use workplace observation, maybe using a simple rating scale for objectivity, or an objectives assessment where participants rate their current knowledge against the upcoming objectives. Pre-assignments or pre-tests are also great. They get people thinking about the topic, assess their starting point, and can even gauge commitment.
And during the training itself, how do you check if people are keeping up?
Super important. Don't wait until the end. First, review the learning objectives together at the start. Make sure everyone's on the same page. Then, use quick hip pocket assessments. Just informally check in. How's it going? What's sticking? Any questions? For heavier content, quizzes and tests are useful, but you can make them engaging. Think group quizzes, game shows, that sort of thing. Keep it light if possible.
And what about assessing skills, not just knowledge, during the session?
Yes, skill assessments. Crucial for behavior change. Demonstrations are classic. You show them, they show you. Use a checklist or scorecard for consistency. Role plays are fantastic for practicing things like negotiation or handling difficult conversations. Give clear roles, maybe tip sheets, and always provide constructive feedback. Simulations, too, can be incredibly powerful, especially for complex procedures or equipment use. They can give immediate objective feedback on performance. Okay, so we've assessed before and during. What about after the training concludes? Assessing after is vital for 2 reasons. 1, some skills just take time to embed. And 2, you need to see if the learning is actually being applied and sustained back in the real world. There's often a sort of timeline matrix people use. Immediately after, you focus on reactions and maybe some learning. A week later, more learning, and start looking at behavior. A month out, you're checking learning, behavior, and potentially initial results. By 6 months, you're primarily focused on sustained behavior and results. Going beyond 6 months is usually only for very specific, long-term impact tracking.
What are some good tools for that post-training period?
A learning journal can be excellent. Participants track how they're using the skills, the challenges, what worked. Giving them a template helps. Goal setting is powerful too. Have participants set SMART goals related to the training specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. But you need follow-up. The manager needs to be involved.
Hmm.
And of course, many tools we already mentioned can be reused. Follow-up quizzes, 360 feedback again later, tracking those key metrics, observations. The main thing is post-training evaluation needs to be relatively easy, consistent, and measurable.
You mentioned sometimes going beyond 6 months, the long-term view. When does that happen?
It's rarer, honestly, because it's resource intensive. But sometimes, for major strategic initiatives or complex behavior changes, you need that longer view. If you do it, you need a solid long-term evaluation plan. Someone needs to own it, often supervisors, with clear accountability. You need an organizational champion, executive buy-in. It's a commitment.
And the methods would be similar, just repeated over time.
Pretty much. Repeated assessments, maybe another round of 360s, retesting knowledge, definitely ongoing metric tracking, structured observations. Consistency and sustainability are key. And critically, at the end of any evaluation period, long or short, document the lessons learned. What worked well with the training and the evaluation, what didn't, what would you change? That feeds back into making the next program even better.
That continuous improvement piece again. Okay, let's shift to the big one everyone asks about. Calculating ROI, return on investment. Companies invest a lot. They want to see the return.
Absolutely. It's often the ultimate goal of level 4 measurement. And ROI involves comparing the program's benefits to its costs. Some benefits are straightforward to quantify the tangible benefits. You mentioned sales increases earlier. Others could be reduced waste, faster production times, lower employee turnover. You track the relevant metric before and after, maybe compare to previous years, and try to calculate the financial value of the improvement. Again, remembering that external factors caveat.
But what about those intangible benefits? Better teamwork, improved morale, clearer communication. How do you put a number on those for an ROI calculation?
That's the perennial challenge. It's often about finding a proxy or making a reasonable estimation. For example, if communication improved, did that lead to fewer project delays? You could estimate the cost of those delays avoided. Or did better time management free up, say, 2 hours per employee per week? You can multiply those hours by their wage rate to estimate a value. It often requires tying the intangible to a tangible outcome, even if it's an estimate.
So you figure out the benefits, tangible and estimated intangible, then what?
Then you need the other side of the equation, total costs, and you have to be thorough here. Include everything. Employee salaries for the time they were in training, not working, travel, accommodation, food costs, materials, room rentals, the facilitator's fees, including their prep and follow-up time, development costs if it was custom, or licensing fees, and don't forget administrative overhead. You need the full cost picture.
Okay, so benefits divided by costs times 100. That gives you the percentage ROI.
Exactly. And all this measurement, all this data, it isn't just about proving past value. It's about building confidence and support for future training.
It lets you make a business case, right?
Precisely. When you go to ask for a budget for the next program, you're not just saying, trust me, this will be good. You have data. You can present a proper business case. Here's the need, here's our proposed solution, here's the evidence from past programs showing the kind of benefits we can anticipate, here are the estimated costs, and here's the potential ROI. It's a much stronger position.
So wrapping this all up, we've covered quite a bit. Understanding how people learn with Kolb seems like a crucial first step.
Definitely. It shapes how you train and how you should evaluate.
Then Kirkpatrick's levels give us that structured way to measure, from gut reactions right up to tangible business results.
Yeah, moving from did they like it to did it make a difference?
And we've touched on the practicalities, building an evaluation plan, using different tools before, during, and after training, and finally tackling that ROI calculation, even for the tricky, intangible benefits.
And the underlying message, I think, is that measurement isn't just something you do at the end. It's an ongoing process. It's about learning, adapting, improving continuously. Knowledge itself isn't enough. It's about applying it, thinking critically about what works.
So for everyone listening, the practical takeaway is really about integrating evaluation right from the start. Plan for it, use the right tools for what you need to measure, and use that data not just to justify, but to actually make your training efforts better over time.
But maybe a final thought to leave with from Aldous Huxley. He said, experience is not what happens to a man. It is what a man does with what happens to him. It's about actively using what you learn, and measurement helps us understand if that's truly happening.
That's a great quote to end on. If you found this deep dive valuable, please do like this episode, subscribe to the deep dive for more insights like this, and maybe share it with a colleague who's wrestling with how to prove the power of their training programs. Thanks for joining us.